Right. Test, test, test. Words, words, words. Test words, test words, test words. Hopefully that's all working. Because I've done a little bit of faffing with my setup. I know, it's wild. Sometimes I just, ooh, the ideas, they hurt my soul. Because you might as well, you know? So this is a little bit of a sort of experiment, see if all of the changes work reasonably well stream. If they do, then I can be very happy. If they don't, then we'll find out what that ultimately means. But welcome on into this stream. There we go. And I hope you're all well. We have to discuss a little bit of an issue that Leeds United may be dealing with in the coming weeks, 2 months, and a little bit, because it specifically surrounds Jaden Bogle. Jaden Bogle, who I would argue is one of the most important players for Leeds United at the moment, because of his just sheer attacking output. Whenever you think of the way that Daniel Farke's sides tend to attack, hold on, I need to fix something. Oh, there we go. You tend to think of Jaden Bogle, because for very, very obvious reasons. However, we could have a little bit of a problem, because as we saw at the end of the last match, Jaden Bogle had a little bit of a knock, a little bit of an issue, and was effectively struggling to have his boot on his foot, which is something that is a little bit of a problem, I would say. Got a little bit more information on that, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a stream on it, and it specifically surrounds the extent of that injury. So, hold on, I'm going to get myself put in the right position. There we go. As you can tell, a little bit of a rework. This is slightly rejigged. There's something on the other screen that is slightly rejigged that I will show you as well, but we'll get there. But from what we've heard, by the sounds of it, the issue with Jaden Bogle is that his foot got incredibly swollen after being stood on by a Wolves player, which is obviously not great. It wouldn't even fit into his boot, and when it came to coming off the pitch, it was a big sort of hobble all the way around, which was a little bit of a bad thing to see from your right back, especially when that right back is potentially one of the most important players in the squad. We'll get into why that is the case tactically in a little bit of time. I'm doing all right, Jimmy Paddy, thank you very much. And I will get to that in a few minutes as well, Ernie. But before we dive into sort of how we fix the problem, we need to talk a little bit about just how much of an impact this is potentially going to have. So if I try to find Jaden Bogle on FBref, there we go. Hello, Jaden. And I whack that F11 button. And head into his season statistics so far. And that's where we will see ultimately where his sort of main way of affecting the club is. So this is an experimental thing, and if it doesn't work, I am deeply sorry, but trust me, I'm doing my absolute bestest. Because I'm going to hop over to monitor number 2, where I've done a slightly different thing, a slightly different change on things. If you guys could spam the chat for a minute, by the way, that'd be massively appreciated, because I kind of need to see if it comes up the wrong way, or if it does any damage to anything. Because if it does, that's a problem. If it doesn't, that's completely fine. But we'll find out how that one goes. But this is ultimately where we see how important Jaden Bogle is. Because a hell of a lot of the time, less of the poop. Oh, yes, it goes behind the thing that says live chat on it. Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. I just needed to make sure that it didn't cover me and it didn't cover the words live chat, but I've managed to work it out. Thank you so much. But you'll see that he's not only doing the sort of standard defensive right-back kind of stuff, but he's one of those marauding players that pushes up, that keeps going forwards and forwards and forwards. Just wait until I do the other thing. The other thing's fantastic. But the main way that you see his sort of impact is you hop to last season, and you see how much of the game he likes to play, not only in the opponent's half, but in the opponent's 6-yard box. Not 6-yard box, 18-yard box. That's the one. And that's how you see the sort of impact that he has on the attacking play at the club, because the amount of oomph that he puts into pressuring opposing defences is something that you don't particularly get from a lot of other right-backs, and is exactly what we are able to have on board that allows us to play Brendan Aronson on the right-hand side, because as we all know, Brendan Aronson isn't that more attacking right-winger, he does the more sort of passive stuff. He's a little bit more on the defensive side, which isn't the biggest of problems, per se, but you need the right system around him to make sure that everything works, and if that system isn't in the right place, then you're just going to build up problems and problems and problems. And that's where we find the potential solution to the problem. I'm going to hop back over to me, there we go, and whilst I do so, I'm just going to quickly say, that if you scan that QR code, you can get some Leeds United merch, and I get a little bit of a percentage of the kickback. That'd be massively appreciated. Thank you very much. I need to slow that gift down. Okay, this is why I'm doing this stream. It's a little bit of a test stream. But you know what? It's a test stream that seems to be doing a job. There we go. Slows it down. It's not great for the frame rate, but yeah, if you scan that QR code and get a Leeds kit, then a little bit of the money comes to me rather than the pockets of the 49ers, or more specifically, Adidas, which is quite an interesting thing. But when it comes to finding the right replacement for Jaden Bogle, that's where you got a little bit of a question mark. Do you go with what is known at Leeds United and comfy and means that you have to change the system a little bit, but for the most part you're able to stay consistent? Or do you pick out the player who means that you can likely stick with the exact same system, but you're not hugely forced to sort of, I phrased that quite badly, but you've got a bit of a different sort of profile when it comes to going forwards. So the question is, do you go in the direction of Sam Byram, or do you go in the direction of James Justin? Because they both provide very, very different things for you. And the main note that I had on James Justin was that in terms of the system, in terms of the way that he plays compared to Jaden Bogle, he's probably the perfect fit for this. If I can get the screen to work nicely. Hold on, give me a second. Bosh, cool. So, as we know, he can play on the left, he can play on the right, that's fine. But if you're comparing James Justin's, which looks a little bit like this with the one from Jaden Bogle a couple of minutes ago, in the Premier League they're approximately the same thing. Now, admittedly, James Justin, a little bit less time in the opponent's penalty box compared to Jaden Bogle, but he's the kind of player that's not afraid to get up and down the pitch. And yes, he's done a little bit of very, very defensive stuff last season, but a lot of that will come from the fact that he was playing for Leicester. And Leicester's entire thing last season was, we'll be forced to do defensive stuff, which is kind of not good. On the other hand, we know that our defensive structure is pretty damn solid at the moment. We know that a lot of the sort of strength of that defensive structure comes from the centre-backs and a central midfielder. So you've got Ampadu, who's happy to drop in between the centre-backs, and the centre-backs provide the defensive cover, which means that Gudmundsson and, in this case, Justin, would be able to bomb on. On the other hand, you've got the alternative option, which would be Sam Byram. Sam Byram is a little bit of an interesting one. I'm very quickly going to start a poll. Who would you start at right back? Would you start with James Justin? Or would you start with Sam Byram? Because the fundamental difference is Sam Byram is that more defensive player. He's someone that isn't as likely to be bombing on forwards and hitting those overlaps. Because in terms of fitness, he's not quite on the same level as Jaden Bogle in the past. And he's probably not quite on the same level as James Justin. Which brings an important sort of question. Because the next two matches, which are the two matches that we are almost certainly losing Jaden Bogle for, are Spurs and Bournemouth. Now, looking at the two, Spurs, I think we can write off as we probably lose that. I'm not saying we write these games off as in we just give up and we roll over and we say, yeah, fine, you can beat us, whatever. But it's more a case of if you overly attack them, they will attack you back and they will attack you harder. The fact that they can just sort of waltz through teams at the moment and they've got the likes of Xavi Simons and they don't even feel the need to play him week in, week out, means that they are a little bit of a dangerous side, and they're a side that we need to be quite careful of. So is there an argument for maybe you play Sam Byram in that situation? I would personally say probably no. I would stick with the system that we are using that works for us, but there are plenty of people that would happily say yes. There's a lot of question marks, I think, around the entire thing, and for me, if we are able to get Bogle fit and healthy as soon as possible, he walks back into the side, but I think James Justin is probably the way that we go immediately here, as does, apparently, 94% of the chat. Sorry, 95% of the chat. But keep whacking your votes on in if you haven't quite yet, that'd be massively appreciated. And we'll have a little bit of a natter about the whole Bogle thing and the general direction that we're going in. And thank you for the reminder, Wayne Dawson. If you wouldn't mind... There we go. Like, comment, and subscribe, because it is one simple click for you guys, or at least liking is and subscribing is. I'm really glad that I got those GIFs to work. That makes me so happy. Also, I've got a slight issue in that I'm going to have to press it again just to resize it, because I can only resize it when it's active, which is a little bit of an issue. So if I press it again, bosh, make it a little bit bigger. There we go. That'll do. That's the right kind of size, I think. Piss, I've lost it. Then it really helps the channel along, especially in this weird YouTube apocalypse that we seem to be going for. But I don't know. Do you think Justin's good enough as a backup? I do, to be honest with you. I think the people that are jumping on the idea that Justin might not be good enough as a backup are either Leicester fans or they are Leeds fans that sort of came in with the assumption that they didn't particularly like James Justin. We've not seen enough of him to assume that he isn't good enough yet. And I know a lot of people will do that, and that could be a prospective issue in the long term. But in the immediate term, I've got no problem at all with James Justin being a second choice right back. The fact that he's both second choice on the right and on the left is a little bit spooky. Like, it means that the moment that he is injured, as well as one of those two, it becomes, okay, it's Sam Byram again. But you're always going to hit the situation where you don't have all the depth that you could feasibly want. And there's an argument that Jack Harrison is a fairly high option in terms of that left-back position as well. It's not just a case of, it's Gudmundsson, then it's Justin, and then it's, oh shit. It's Justin, Gudmundsson, choice between Harrison or Byram, which do you fancy? I don't know. And then you build from that kind of situation onwards. It's hard to judge Justin. Leicester were a championship side in the Premier League. Being around better players will likely help his performance. Yeah, and the question is, do we have the better players? And I think we have better players than Leicester did at the equivalent point. It's hard to say, very obviously, because we've not exactly been in the Premier League for a very long time yet. But ideally, we will stick around for quite some time, and will become a sort of place where... And like this is an important note as well. So people were looking at the bench a couple of weeks ago, and they were going, well, we got Beale, we got Bornout, and we got Justin on that bench, which adds up to £26 million. Why didn't we just put that on a striker? And this is why we didn't put that on a striker, right? Because at some point, Jaden Bogle, who is one of our star players, is going to get injured. That's going to happen. The same will happen to Gudmundsson. Other players will get injuries. Calvert-Lewin will get injuries. And this isn't saying, oh, he's injury prone. No, this is just doing the sort of standard, he's a footballer and things hurt sometimes. We saw it with Lucas Perry, who wasn't particularly injury prone when he came to Leeds. Yeah, he had a bit of a knock, but he wasn't prone to those problems. From time to time, players are going to get injured. The same will happen to Strauch at some point, as we know it inevitably does every single year. We have that period where we're like, bloody Pascal, he's managed to get himself hurt again. But that's sort of fine, because that's why you sign Beale, that's why you sign Bornout, and that's when it's their chance to sort of take a significant role in the side. So the way that we tend to do rotation isn't the same way that a lot of sides will do rotation, which is just a case of, give me a second, whilst I pull up a thing. Right, cool. Go F11. Nice. And monitor 2. So we don't just sort of do the case of, so we're a little bit bored right now, so Tanaka, you can drop out of the side instead of Tanaka. Hold on, I just need to straight delete you, don't I? Because that's not how this works. And instead of Tanaka, we'll play Longstaff for a little bit, but that's okay, because we're only playing Longstaff whilst Tanaka gets a little bit of a rest and all that kind of stuff. That's not the way that rotation has tended to work under Daniel Farke. Instead, it will be, this is my best first 11, so I'm going to keep playing this first 11 because that's what makes sense to me. Because we don't want to be in a position where we're playing anything less than the best players available. But then, occasionally, what's going to happen is Bogle's going to get injured and Bogle's going to end up on the sidelines. And to replace Bogle, you are going to play, as is according to the poll, which I have just finished with 91% voting this way, you're going to have James Justin come in, right? And then at that point, Justin has that position in the squad, and Justin is going to play as consistently as he can, as high quality as he can. And if he plays well enough, when Bogle gets fit again and becomes part of this active pool of players that can be part of the squad, he's not just going to be parachuted back into this position. Because the way that we'll do it is instead say, okay, well, James Justin has been absolutely spectacular. Bogle, you're going to have to earn that place back off the bench. The times that hasn't been the case have been incredibly rare at Leeds United in recent years. It's been a case of, if Strauch is out, Ampadu's had to come on in. Ampadu, not naturally a centre-back, so Strauch comes back fit and healthy, and Strauch takes that position back. Or if in the first season after we got relegated, you've got Georgie as an option at 10, you've got Joffy as an option at 10. If you've had to play Joffy for 2 or 3 matches, that's a nice enough idea, but he's not going to be the same sort of standard. And the fact of the matter is, Justin, when he's playing well, is the same sort of standard as Bogle. There isn't really the situation of Daniel Farke saying, well, we'll just do a little bit of rotating and see how it lands. Because instead, he seems constantly dedicated to, I will put out the best version of this team, and if someone is unfit, then the best version of this team is a slightly different version, because these are the players that are actually available to me at this time. Which I like. It makes plenty of sense to me. I've got no issue with that. And there is also the argument of we paid $8 million for James Justin as a backup fullback, and the fact of the matter is, if he's available as a backup fullback, you kind of play him, because we know he's a really, really, really good footballer, and hopefully he's able to do that for us at Leeds United for an extended period of time. Years on end would be the dream, to be honest with you. But I'm not going to stream for a super long time tonight, primarily because I do not have the time to. I'm starting work in about 10 minutes, which means that I have to run downstairs, I have to go and make myself some soup, and I have to go and eat the soup, probably once work has already started, which is going to be a good time. But before I head off, I'll give it a couple of moments of just sort of hanging out. If anyone's got any questions or anything, chuck them in my direction. Not another Chinese. No, that was a delicious little chow mein that I cooked, though. That was spectacular. If anyone's got questions or anything, chuck them in my general direction. And whilst you're at it, you can like, comment, and subscribe. That's absolutely fantastic of you. I appreciate it. If I make that a bit bigger. There we go. It's one button. It's the button that's down there to subscribe, and YouTube has been unsubscribing people without them deciding to unsubscribe from the people that they were subscribed to. So that's lovely. Thank you, YouTube. So if that's happened to you, it'd be nice if you could fix it. Comment if you haven't quite yet, or like the stream, or become a channel member. All of the above is wonderful. Channel members get videos and stuff like a few hours early, and it's $2.99 a month, and it very much helps the channel and make sure that I'm able to keep on doing this. And also, if you fancy a little bit of Leeds merch, is this one up here. If you scan that QR code, you can get your Leeds merch at that shop link, and I get a little bit of a sort of cutback from it. And it's absolutely spectacular. And that is a really, really long gift, but I'm going to keep it that way. I quite like it. But if anyone has any questions or anything, chuck them in my direction. I'll go till the stream's been on for 20 minutes, which seems like a fairly reasonable amount of time to keep going for, I think. And then I'll probably leave that there, to be honest with you. Because the important thing is Jaden Bogle getting fit and healthy. The rumour is he will be unavailable for Bournemouth. He will be unavailable for Spurs. He'll be back after the international break. Which I honestly think is his cheeky way of saying, actually, no, I don't want to be called up for England yet because I have a job to do in Leeds. Which would be a nice thing for him to do, to be honest. I doubt that that is actually the case, but just imagine. Imagine if he was like, no, I won't have that England call-up. Daniel needs me. That'd be the dream. Imagine the dedication on the man in that case. But it'll be a few weeks till he's fine. You may be pleased to hear that Habib Diarra's injured, rather than enjoyed, I assume, till late December. I did see that, yeah. And immediately after this, it's going to be AFCON. And clubs don't often get to say, no, you don't get to go to AFCON. That's not really in a club's power a lot of the time. Which is kind of a good thing for us, because it means that a fairly significant player for Spurs is going to be unavailable to them. So if I just quickly go to FBref, Sunderland, and have a quick look. Habib Diarra has currently played in 4 of their matches, starting the 4 that he's played, and got 345 minutes, which means that he's one of the most important players in that side, and if he is unavailable to that side, then they could be in potential trouble. Which I don't like seeing anyone be in trouble as a football club, but I don't hate it when it isn't us, you know? It's a good position for us to be in if other clubs are like, oh no, what's going on? What's going on is you're in the shit. Quite fun. You get mystery injuries before AFCON. Yeah, it's weird that, isn't it? Just imagine if they also start like, what's happened to Siddiqui and Ronaldo? Well, Ronaldo got himself a red card, so that's also convenient for him, isn't it? And Talby. And Adingra. They've got a lot of players. And Masuaku that could end up with suspicious little injuries before AFCON. Which I understand from the player's perspective, I completely get it. But I imagine from the Sunderland perspective, it's a little bit annoying. Chris Rick starting in his place against Fulham was brilliant. That's fair, but then you're relying quite a lot on an 18-year-old in the Premier League, and I think that that is not the position that Sunderland will realistically want to be in. They'll want the strong squad, and if they don't have the strong squad, then that could be a little bit of a problem for them. Anyway, I'm going to bring that stream to a close there. I will do another one tomorrow. Might have a video out in the morning. I might do one after work, to be honest with you. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll have to find out. If you enjoyed, please pop a like on the stream. That'd be absolutely spectacular review. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and even become a channel member. That's always massively appreciated. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you later. Toodaloo. Sadly, I've not got a new version of this screen yet, so you're just gonna have to sort of deal with it, I think. Sorry. I will work on it though. Or will I? Ooh. Persuade me. Ta-ra.